everyone. Welcome to the Power Up Your Life podcast. I am Kelly Resendez.
And I'm Mandy McAllister.
And we are so excited to have our new friend, Mills Bender, here with us. She is the founder of Mills Knows Bills. So she's somebody that's really just mastered her personal money story and decided to help other people do the same thing through financial coaching. What she didn't expect, though, along this journey was that she would end up becoming the founder of this amazing Mills Knows Bills platform that offers fractional CFO services for multiple companies. She's helped businesses with over $40 million in revenue and really just helped them make more and work less. I mean, who doesn't want to do that? So we are just so excited to have you here with us, Mills. Welcome. Just to get us kicked off, give us a little bit of your background, just professionally and personally.
Sure. So let's start on the personal side. I've been married for about 7 years. I have two beautiful kiddos. One's 2, one's 8 months. I'm really excited to be here today. I know I've connected with both of you individually, and what really sparked our conversation today was our synergies in the professional side. And so on the professional side, I own a company of fractional CFOs where we partner with small businesses, typically in the blue collar space, to help them manage their business finances. A lot of times people ask me how I found this career, and the short part of it is it found me. I did not go out seeking for it, but I wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah, man, my parents were in a blue collar business. And let me tell you, 7 years after they put it to bed, I was like, oh, praise Jesus, the IRS did not come. Because once I dug in, I was like, they needed your fractional CFO services. Because I think so many people in that industry believe oh, if I cut corners, it's not a big deal. But then once the IRS comes in, man, it is a big deal. So
yeah. And even just not the IRS, you're hurting yourself in the long run too, especially if you want to sell your business. If you're cutting corners, you're cutting on your valuation in the future too. So it's a whole double-edged sword.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing, Mills, that we always love for our audience to hear about is, we see the success on the outside, right? You've built this business, but I'm sure there were a lot of challenges or periods of time that you probably just asked yourself, is this for me? I want to give up. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm feeling stuck. What has been that experience for you on getting through that messy part in your business? What actionable steps do you take when you find yourself in that situation, or you have in the past?
That's a great question. And it's actually funny because all of last year, there was probably more days that I wanted to close my doors than there were days that I wanted to keep them open. Last year, it was just a really tough year. I was postpartum with my first, newly pregnant with my second. The hormonal changes were one thing, but then trying to scale a business, because you get to the point where you have the demand and you have to scale, that's a whole other beast. And so one thing that I've really made sure to make an effort of when I have those negative thought processes is not necessarily the actions I take, but the actions I don't take.
Ooh.
And so whenever I'm in that position and whenever I'm feeling like that, I'm not allowed to make any big decisions, at least for a couple days. And so my thought process is, this is a temporary feeling. I can sit in it. I can acknowledge it, but I'm not going to make decisions based off of it. Let me revisit this issue in 2 or 3 days when things have cleared and settled down. And I try to make a point when I'm in more of that positive mindset to reflect back when things were more difficult and think, wow, I thought that was difficult. I'm on the other side and it's only been a few days. What was I thinking? And so it's the actions I don't take at that point.
I love that idea of finding objectivity by detaching yourself from those feelings, recognizing that you're in the feeling and then looking at it objectively and kind of putting the time out on yourself to not make any big decisions. That's absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
Thank you.
It sounds like that is kind of an unconventional strategy, a strategy that everyone might not obviously turn to. But I'm curious if you have others. Are there other unconventional strategies that you have that people might disagree with in terms of, family or business or scaling?
Yeah, I mean, I don't seek out advice from people who are not in a position where I want to be in. And so when I have those struggles or those, hardships, I go to the person who I know has been in that situation before. My buddy Scott Kelly, I actually introduced you to him this morning. He's somebody that I go to a lot because he's about 2 years ahead of where I'm at. And so it's still very fresh in his mind, the struggles that I encounter on a day-to-day basis. And so I'll get his advice, not somebody who's 10 years ahead of me, and certainly not somebody who's behind me in my business life cycle. And so it makes it a little bit more applicable. Somebody can understand the chaos too, and you don't feel as crazy. And then if it just becomes really overwhelming, I go for a run. I physically get out of my office. I close my laptop. I give myself some space because there's nothing a little fresh air and sun can't fix. So those are really my 3 things I tend to do.
That's amazing. I love that. One thing, you probably always haven't been a business owner. What was that transition for you moving? Because we have a lot of people that want to power up their life. Like, that's really the premise of this, is how do we get to that next level? How did you move from being in that employment role to now running this super successful fractional CFO company that you do?
How personal do you want me to get?
Let's go,
girl.
Let's go.
Okay, so I actually never wanted to be a business owner. I had taken so many professional quizzes when I graduated from college because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And they all came back with entrepreneur or business owner. And it was wrong. Every single test was wrong. Right. So I refused it. And it wasn't until I was down in Miami. I was working at a small print shop and I was kind of their internal analyst / CFO of sorts that I realized that there was a very big need for financial services for small business owners. And so I began my company strictly as a YouTube channel. I had no intention of taking it full time for about 5 years, but 5 months in, COVID happened and I lost that role. And so when I say that fractional CFO services found me rather than me seeking it, it really was that door was shut and I was kind of shoved through the next one. Now, Mills Knows Bills was not at the point where it could be self-sustaining. And so I did end up finding an additional role while I was building my company. And that role was very similar. It was an administrative / CFO role, very, very small gym. And where the personal side comes in it was not a great work environment. It was very toxic, and I ended up having to go through therapy to heal from some things. And through therapy, I realized that I was keeping myself in that role and not taking the leap of entrepreneurship fully because I was self-sabotaging and I was not believing that I was good enough, honestly. And so it was very interesting, the timeline of me hiring this therapist, and it was maybe 6 weeks in that I was like, you know what? I've already see that she can help me overcome some of these other traumatic things from my past. Let me just take a leap of faith. And so through therapy and through valuing myself personally was when I decided I was able to value myself professionally. Oof. And that's where everything changed for MKB. I went full time. I hit 6 figures within the first year. I made my first hire. Like, I started growing at a rate that I never dreamed possible simply because I healed the personal side first.
I love that. We say a lot that you can only grow your business as far as you've grown yourself.
I agree.
I've got to imagine that people listening to this see the success that you've created, Mills, and think it's crazy that you feel self-sabotage, or that you feel not enough in some cases. You don't realize that that's a problem, and it poof goes away like magic, right? Those feelings continue to creep in. Tell me a couple actionable steps. When you recognize that stuff is coming in, what do you do to make sure that you're continuing on the growth path and really put those feelings to bed?
Absolutely. Well, faith is a huge piece for me. And so in my structure of my day, it's very difficult for entrepreneurs to not have a given structure. And so I make sure I have that structure where I work out, I have my quality time within my faith, and then I get started on the day. And so I have 4 F's in my life: faith, family, fitness, finance. And they're in that order for a reason. So I start my day with my faith. I make sure I get something in for my fitness. I spend quality time with my family, and then the finance comes as a result. And so I find that whenever I feel misaligned, it's because those 4 F's are out of alignment. And so it's a matter of me being intentional of restructuring my day, making sure I'm putting the things that are of utmost importance first, and then everything will fall into place.
Wow, that's so great.
Thank you.
I think it's really brilliant that this idea of having your principles. Ray Dalio wrote a great book called Principles that's about, 7 inches thick, which, my primary takeaway of that book was, just have your own set of principles. And if you ever feel wobbly, go back to what you have decided for yourself. I absolutely love the 4 F's.
Thank you. Thank you. I have a lot of friends who have their own version of their 4 F's, and it's nice to see how, if you're able to have that as your compass of sorts, it makes the difficulties of entrepreneurship feel a little bit more manageable.
Absolutely. And Mandy, nailed it for us, is that we have these conversations when people are thinking about powering up their life, that, who you're being is just as important as what you're doing. And that success is that inside out job, and you just emulate that. Like, your presence is very powerful in that. And I'm very faith driven too, and start my day putting, that prioritization there. So for a lot of people, they don't feel like that's possible. So one of the greatest abundance challenges, or ways that I see people self-sabotage, is that they believe they don't have time to be able to prioritize their family, their fitness, their faith, because they're so in it right now. Like, their business is struggling, they're worried about their finances. So talk to that audience a little bit. Like, tell me, like, what advice that you would give them, because you may have been in that same situation before as well. And when you tap into abundance and you're like, oh, I get to choose how I live my life, then we all look like we got it figured out. And to the person that doesn't, they don't really like us sometimes. Let's be honest.
Let's
They're
be
like,
honest,
oh yeah, I don't like you. Like, that's not possible for me. So speak to that audience for a minute.
I was there, and I always felt like I had to be doing and grinding in my business. And I felt like if I wanted to take a vacation, that meant I had to work extra just to deserve that vacation coming up. And at the end of the day, it's just money. And I know I work with money, but like it's a piece of paper that we've assigned value to it. And so what is more important on your deathbed? A relationship with your family, or holding on to a slip of paper? And it's a bit of a drastic thought process, but every decision I make is around that thought process. And I found that by taking time to be with my family, spend time in my faith, spend time on my fitness, I'm more productive in my business.
Yeah.
And having that rest, a lot of people think that rest is laziness. Rest is actually production. It's allowing you to refill your cup so you can be more efficient. And so every time I question whether or not I should take that vacation or spend that time with my family, I never regret it. And I always find that it comes back tenfold. The second I step away from my business is the second I get clarity on that issue that's been racking my brain for months. It's the second that I find opportunities that I would have never been exposed to if I had not stepped out of my day-to-day. And so it might feel a bit foreign when you're in the grind every single day, but I would encourage the listener who feels like that to block off an hour for lunch each day. Block off time with your kids in the morning or time with your spouse in the evening and see what happens. You're going to find ways to be more efficient with your time, and you're going to be able to enjoy your time with your family a little bit more. And it's not going to be perfect, but if you're able to do it consistently, you'll start breeding a new habit for yourself to where then the grind every single minute of every single day feels foreign.
That's Parkinson's law, right? Like you'll fill up every amount of time that you allow yourself. If you get a week to clean your house, it's going to take you a week. If it's going to take you an hour, it's going to take you an hour. So I love that. Just make the decision, do the big rocks first, do the things that fill up your life first, and then everything else will fall into place. Talking about clarity, talking about big decisions, what are some things when you have that big decision that you are lacking clarity? What do you do? What is a strategy that you employ to figure out what to do next when you're lacking that clarity?
I'm a pen and paper gal. And so I have these giant sheets of paper where I will just brain dump everything. And then I'll take different colored markers and I'll find the pieces that maybe connect, cross out the ones that aren't important. And what I try to do is hone in on the one thing that will solve the rest of the problems. And so if I'm able to focus my efforts every single day on one thing that will solve 90% of the problems, then I'm being effective. All the other items can either be delegated or postponed. It's as simple as that. And so brain dump, figure out that one thing, take action on that one thing, get rid of the rest in some capacity.
That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. So one of the things I've noticed about the growth of your business is that not only do you have a business, but you also have really become kind of an authority figure in talking about bills. And, you've got an amazing podcast. I would love to hear a little bit more about how you've really used that in order to grow your business. We have people here that are definitely wanting to accelerate the growth of their business, and they look at, well, I can do lead gen, I can do referral, I can go to events, I can do these other things. But talk a little bit about how that's helped you build that authority and value that you give to everyone that's out there.
Absolutely. Finance is a very personal thing. And so in order for me to grow my business, people need to know, like, and trust the brand. And so I need to lead with the brand. I use my podcast to build relationships either with strategic referral partners or prospects. If they have questions that they want answered, it's kind of like a try before you buy. And that is then converted into content that can live evergreen. So while I have one-on-one conversations with individuals, they can find me online on Instagram or my podcast, and then they get to continue getting to know me. So it's like my sales process is still working. They're still getting to know the brand, the personality, while I'm also actively doing the work. So we have this passive long-term strategy, which is all of our content, while also the active shorter-term strategy where we do networking and building relationships directly.
Wow. That's absolutely incredible. And I think for some people it seems daunting just, to be able to have these one-on-one conversations with people while you're doing this, but it sounds like it's a super great recipe for success for you.
Hear me say that I'm always nervous. I'm nervous before every single speaking engagement, workshop, podcast, whether I'm leading my own podcast, I'm always nervous. Yeah. But it's not about sitting in that. It's about doing it anyway. I feel like there's this misconception that entrepreneurs just have no fear. No. We have fear. We just do it anyway because there's something great on the other end of it. And so if you need to step into an alter ego and, give yourself that mentality, well, this person has already figured it out, so I'm going to step into that personality, do whatever you need to do. Just make sure it gets done.
Making it about the message or the impact instead of about me is
Correct.
absolutely the thing that gets me out. I physically shook when I defended my master's thesis, but then I took improv comedy classes, and it was about the message. It was about supporting, exactly like you're saying. I love that, Mills.
Is that why you're so funny, Mandy?
I mean,
come on.
I identify as funny. I mean,
Yeah.
I identify.
Exactly. Sometimes I tried to be as funny as Mandy, but no. Oh my God. Number one, like, I just wish I could have a cup of coffee with you right now, because you are our people. You are absolutely like wonderful. And there's so many things. Like, I want to just unpack a little bit of this for our listeners, because we want them to power up their lives wherever they are in their business growth, in potentially looking at leaving a W-2 and moving on to doing something that's more fulfilling for them. So, some of the magic that I've heard today is that you really need to put yourself first, and in that faith, that fitness, getting your priorities in order. You talked a little bit about self-sabotage. You talked to two major things on the self-sabotage is that even if you're afraid, you do it anyway. Fear of failure and fear of success are paralyzing for so many people. Many people. And so you really did the work, right, to be able to get to that next level, and recognizing that, you had all the signs that you should be an entrepreneur, but you just, you had that little bit of I'm not enough going on. And I think one thing that we see a lot in GoBundance women is that we see this trajectory of not enough or too much. Like, I was with some ladies here in Austin, Texas last night, and one of them is just Loud, Kelly Cochran, which is amazing. Awesome.
The name of her book is Loud.
Like, holy moly. And she's like, everyone told me I was too much, but it was because she wasn't in the right environment.
Yes.
And when you get into that right environment, you're like, oh, I'm just right. Like, yeah, I get a little nervous, but I'm still going to do it anyway. And then the other things is really become that authority figure in your business, so that you can be that super attractor. And you are a master networker. I know just since I've met you, you've made all sorts of introductions, and these are selfless introductions. And for most of us, we hear that adage that your network, is your net worth. And when you think about it, it is just like constantly we are trading people that are going to add value. And when you look for that opportunity, and this is what I want people to look at, to power up your life, we need to magnetize ourselves, not only for opportunity for ourselves, but for the people that are in our circle. And so that's one thing that we always want to do in GoBundance Women and on the Power Up Your Life podcast is make those life-changing introductions. And so what would be one, either your avatar for your business, maybe that's listening today, or just a life-changing introduction or resource that's going to change the ballgame for you?
Somebody that I would want an introduction to?
Yeah.
Oh, I've not been asked this before. I know that you and I talked about this, and this is just the first thing that comes to mind, but Cody Sanchez, because we work with a very similar demographic. And I think that would be really cool, because she's an amazing powerhouse. If nothing else, I just want to have coffee with her.
That's
you guys
awesome.
look like you should be cousins.
Yeah. We have to get you to Austin, number one. And, Cody just launched her book for anybody listening out there. It just went live yesterday. I know this is going to be a little bit delayed too. So, I always tell people, like, you want to get to know somebody, start helping them already. Like, take a look at her book, check it out. I definitely know that we can make that introduction to her for you. So that's amazing. And we started this with Mandy saying that you and Cody look like long lost sisters.
You do.
So we're going to have to, take a photo here and be able to share that. Absolutely.
But before we sign off, Mills, tell us that anybody who wants to find more information on you, how do they get a hold of you or find your stuff?
millsknowsbills.com. It's the best way to get access to everything. Podcasts, social media, you name it.
That is such an amazing, like catchy name
you.
for a business as well. So Mills, just incredibly grateful that you have spent your time with us here today, and just congratulations on all your success. And more importantly, and being brave and courageous in pushing past the fears, pushing past that, not feeling enough and doing it anyway. Like, you have powered up your life, girl. So absolutely impressed. Can't wait to spend more time with you in person, and just absolutely grateful.
Thank you guys so much.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks
Catch you
for
on the
joining
next
us.
episode of Power Up Your Life.